To save the world today is to preserve the Armenian civilization. Appeal of the Nobel Prize nominee in economics and the 2020 Nobel Peace Prize nominee Academician Martik and Academician Levon BEKLARYAN, co-author of the research The Armenian Highlands, the cradle of the creation of the world and civilization, the heir and keeper of universal values and relics, noted in the nomination of the Nobel Prize. To His Excellency, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Armenia, Mr. Nikol PASHINYAN, all Armenian people in Armenia, Artsakh, abroad and in the diaspora, on the serious threats and challenges to the modern world civilization and urgent measures to preserve Armenian identity and statehood, saving the country's economy from collapse in connection with the pandemic challenge for the mankind. Armenian statehood is 4,512 years old. Evidence of this is the history of our statehood on the petroglyphs on the Armenian Highlands, but also the Armenian epic and manuscripts of Madanaran, Alexandria, and the Vatican. It is obvious that the Armenian statehood is in danger. The country's economy is on the verge of destruction. In this regard, we urge everyone to support the Prime Minister and the government of the Republic of Armenia. The classic of Armenian poetry, Yekishe Charents, noted the salvation of our people is in their unity. Intellectuals from around the world point to 10 threats and challenges of modern civilization: asteroids, GMO, viral infections, climatic imbalance, deterioration of nutrition and chemicalization, the growing storage of fresh water on the planet, weathering of humus, deterioration and reduction of water and forest zones, the problem of loot, inaction of politicians, scientists, inventors used by business. To combat the above threats and challenges to the modern world of civilization, it is necessary to develop more than 100 laws in order to identify a number of fundamental concepts: intelligence, intellectual world, intellectual development of a person, dissemination of knowledge, identity of content, authors dominant, etc. In this hierarchy of laws, for the Armenian people in the modern world, the identification of culture and language, this was announced on March 3, 2020 by Academician Martik at the 43rd session of the UN Human Rights Council, and the identification of morality of intellectuals are important. The importance of what was said was demonstrated in an interview with Henry Kissinger. He noted that globalization processes will sweep away everything on the planet, where will be no salvation even for the elites of nations. It should be noted that after that the host was forced to interrupt the interview and ask the famous politician to exit. The press conference was interrupted. In this regard, together with the founder of Qualimetry, now the late Professor Harry Gaikovich Asgaltov, an article was written about what our modern youth should do in order to not to get into the bloody grinder of this massacre. The article was published. Further, it was widely promoted around the old world. It is in a big demand today also, both for the innovative aspirations of our nations, especially youth, and for the country's transition to a smart and intelligent economy with high-quality indicators. Armenian petroglyphs also testified to the deep ideas of the Armenians about the universe. According to the Gospel of Matthew, about the mysterious heavenly phenomenon, the Star of Bethlehem and the Old Testament, the wise men, whose relics are now stored in Cologne, came to Nazareth from the Armenian Highlands, where astronomy was very developed at that time. One was called Balasar, read Bagdasar. Continuing, I should note that the Armenian petroglyphs also testified to the deep ideas of the Armenians about the universe. Today, the modern civilization is in the process of innovative, technological, and high-speed informational changes. At the same time, the modern world and its centers of power are characterized by the presence of excesses, funds for their destruction, and the complete lack of accountability. The concept of safe and negotiable world based on the doctrine of the place of power centers, empires, as designers of such a security system, and the rest of the world as a consumer of this security system turned out to be another fake. This concept was based on the idea of the feasibility of decision made by centers of power, and in the end showed its complete failure. The idea of the appropriateness of decisions made by the centers of power should be replaced by new, revived approaches based on the preservation of civilizational achievements. The complex social structures of the modern world, states and other entities, should be formed as a union of nations' civilizations, which can only be both security designers and its consumers. All the above applies also to the Near East and Middle East, occupying a special place in the history of mankind and acting as the most important communicator between the West and the East of the past millennia. In different historical periods, only the direction of flows of transferred resources, technologies, knowledge, and ideas changed, and the communicator remained the same. The central link of such a communicator is the Armenian Highlands, as well as the Armenian people as a subject that maintains communication between East and West. Current events in Western Asia and the Middle East have many dimensions. The most important of them is the failure of the attempts of the last 300 years to transfer the main communicator from the Armenian Highlands and the territories adjacent to it to the Atlantic. Everything is back now. Today the struggle is for control of the main communicator, which connects the main manufacturer, China, with one of the most solvent consumers, Europe. Evidence of this is a factor analysis of the economics of high-tech powers and China. The most important task for the future is to prevent the transfer of the territory of the Near East and the Middle East to the territory of confrontation between the centers of power. A conflict-free and secure future for the Near East and the Middle East can be provided only by the peoples and their unions vitally connected with this territory. The Armenian people are given a special place in this process, which they are obliged to take. Today, we must identify and systemize the views of Mr. Bunyutian, one of the leading representatives of the world scientific tradition of studying crisis and cycling phenomena in the economy, to identify the causes and manifestations of economic crisis. This is necessary to develop sound approaches and practical steps taken by the government of the Republic of Armenia in connection with the pandemic. From time immemorial, the Armenian people were the creator, and the Armenian statehood was powerful and creative. Armenian entrepreneurship was social-oriented. Armenian reality was without caste and classes. The evidence of this is the cave paintings about the universe and the Armenian epos on the Geram and Sunni petroglyphs, the law code of the Sambat's parapet, who became the basis of the statehood of the Kilikian kingdom. Such a law allowed the citizens of the principality to become creators and producers. Kilikia exported its finished products in particular precious metals and stones, etc., to other countries. At the same time, maritime republics such as Venice and Genoa imported raw materials and foreign goods, semi-finished products from all over the old world. The Sambat law code became the basis of pirate law, part of the international law. Judicial Miktar Ghosh was laid the foundation of the first democratic constitution on the territory of continental Europe in Poland, and the texts of constitution of the Enlightenment era for the free Armenia of 1773 by Shabamirian, Snare of Glory, and Target were one of the earliest modern constitutional political writings in the world. It is believed that the United States Constitution, created in 1787, is the oldest existing constitution in the world. For comparison, the Declaration of Human Rights and Citizens of the French Revolution was created in 1789, and the Polish Constitution only got to the printing house in 1791. However, for 14 years before the publication of the US Constitution, Armenians already published the Enlightenment Constitution for a free Armenia. The works of ancient Armenian thinkers, the achievements of socio-economic and medical thought of medieval Armenian philosophical schools, which have survived to this day, of the healers and systems of organization of healing, including during the epidemic, they were taken as a basis for the organizing medicine in the countries of the old world. If the issue of the Armenian state building during the restoration of the Armenian state were based on the work of thinkers of Armenian philosophical schools, when there would not be such an ugly phenomenon as the destruction of liquidity of assets with the grabbing of everything that was created by the painstaking work of the Armenian people and the efforts of the diaspora after the Armenian genocide. Now more than ever, the time has come for the Armenians and the indigenous people of the greater Middle East to regain their rights and become communicators in solving urgent problems on the planet. That is why it is time to call on the Armenian diaspora and all indigenous people of the region for a civilizational dialogue. In particular, Armenian and Chinese peoples have deep civilizational ties since time immemorial. In the current situation with a pandemic, it would be a right to appeal to the Chinese for their experience with the coronavirus. The key to success is a deep historical memory characteristic of the Chinese people. All true and strong civilizational ties are manifested precisely in crisis situations. Such communication during the crisis can restore interrupted civilization ties dating back thousands of years. We urge all Armenians living in all concerns of the planet Earth, spiritually, morally, and yes, financially, to help our people in the country in the diaspora. Armenian statehood, with its action or inaction, is not harmful. Nobody will give us something good. We must create it ourselves. The state of emergency in Armenia was conducted correctly and on time. Practice shows that the state of emergency equates to martial law. Nobody, both individuals and legal entities, especially pseudo-philanthropists, have not been given the right to behave irresponsible and immorally during a state of emergency. The state, as a subject of international law in such situation, facilitates or straightens tax administration, postpones and or burdens taxation, increases the social responsibility of the state through sectoral and territorial administration, strengthens the management of uninterrupted energy, transport, communication and national security of the state and each citizen of the country. All issues are resolved strictly according to the canons of the state of emergency, merits to the people and the state having nothing to do with it. This state of emergency resembles our homeless grief. It's hard to be an Armenian. As a poet Parisavak said, we are different. This doesn't mean that we are higher. No. Everything changes in the universe. Children are born with new files. Everything inside us changes. Values are changing. Our people deserve to get out of this situation with dignity for the peaceful future of the young generation on a new, bright planet. Levon BEKLARYAN, Chief Researcher, Sami Ras, Doctor of Philosophy, Professor, Academician of the Russian Academy of Natural Science. Martik GASPARYAN, Member of the Scientific Council of the Russian Academy of Science, Member of the Presidium of the Russian Academy of Natural Science, Academician of the Russian Academy of Natural Science, Russian Academy of Science, Madame Levon, Professor, Doctor of Economics. Head of the International Independent Legal and Scientific Center for Expertise Assessment of Reparation and Restitution. Since 1993, member of Analytical Center of the Club of Rome, member of Eurasian Scientific Council for Science and High Technologies. 27th of March 2020. This appeal is open for a session.